Right, thank you so much for still being with us right here on Africa 411. My name is Eugene Adangwe. Now we are actually moving on swiftly. The U.S. Embassy in Tanzania has actually raised concerns over what it says are rising and unreported COVID-19 cases in that country. 2 weeks after the last update, Tanzania's opposition now demands the truth about the country's coronavirus infections. This comes amid a series of complaints that President John Pombe Magufuli's government has approached the deadly COVID-19 pandemic with laxity. Earlier on, I spoke with Tanzanian opposition party leader Zitto Kabwe, and I started by asking him to share the objectives of a letter his party has actually sent to the SADC on President Magufuli's handling of COVID-19.
We all know that COVID-19 pandemic is a global and regional as well, and Tanzania is a member of SADC. 16 countries forming SADC, and 8 of them met last week under the chairmanship of the President of South Africa, President Ramaphosa. And also the African Union held a summit of all leaders of regional economic communities in Africa, and SADC was not represented because the chairperson of SADC is from Tanzania. So there is a concern that the whole SADC region and also the East African community is sidelining Tanzania. We had a closure of border on Monday between Tanzania and Zambia. Zambia closed its border, and we have a number of problems at Namanga border, at the border with Rwanda. So all these needed an attention of the region. So we wrote a letter to the heads of state of SADC, informing them that we really need to work, Tanzanians really need to work with them, but they have to hold their colleague to account. President Magufuli has to be held to account in order to make sure that we handle this matter regionally rather than in isolation.
Right. And from this letter, which we have a copy, you actually say that the Tanzanian government seems intent on maintaining its status as both regional and international outliner in terms of combating COVID-19. However, you keep saying...
Yeah.
Yes. However, you keep saying that the president of Tanzania, or the government that he heads, is silent or working towards, working in isolation about this. What do you want the president of Tanzania to do?
First of all, there are WHO guidelines which neighboring countries are following regarding combating COVID-19. We have seen what is going on in Kenya. For example, the daily updates in Kenya. In Tanzania today is the 14th day without any update. But also the issue of the gatherings. In Tanzania, it is business as usual. People are congregating in churches, in mosques, and it's the month of Ramadan, where Muslims go to mosque more than any other time. And people go to mosque as usual. And this is very dangerous because of the contagious nature of the virus. Mm-hmm. So for that matter, Tanzania has adopted a completely different approach from the way other countries are adopted. It's only Tanzania and Burundi that are approaching in a different way. That's why we say it is an outlier. So what we want President Magufuli and his government to do is simple. Let the scientists lead this work of combating the pandemic. And secondly, follow the WHO guidelines, as other countries are doing. We cannot fight this virus in isolation. We have to work together with other countries, especially in the region, within the East African community, and within SADC, and within the African Union, in order to make sure that we deal with this pandemic in the whole of the continent.
Right. Honorable Zitto, you're talking about working together and not in isolation. But we have seen on 2 occasions now, the East African Community Heads of States have tried to actually convene sessions to talk about a regional approach towards handling COVID-19 in the region. And twice, the president of Tanzania and Burundi have been conspicuously missing in action. Now, if we look at this letter to the SADC, how sure are you that whatever you say or the content of this letter will actually fall on ears that will listen and act?
The most important thing is to act. It's not just to keep quiet and fold the hands. So we act. We take because we have limited options to do as a party and as Tanzanians. That's why we are asking heads of states of other countries who are colleagues to our president to reach out to him, to talk to him, to let him make sense on how this virus should be fought. And I am sure that our efforts will definitely yield results. Tanzania is a key example of a country that extended its support to many countries in Africa during their liberation. So I'm sure through that brotherly and sisterly cooperation, leaders in Mozambique, in South Africa, in Botswana, Zambia, and any other SADC country, and leaders within East Africa will be able to talk with President Magufuli, and President Magufuli understands and be able to be on the same table and address this issue. Because if you don't address coronavirus in Tanzania, whatever you do in Kenya or Uganda or Rwanda will be nothing. You can now hear the issues of the lorry truck drivers causing mayhem in all the countries. Just recently, 74% of the new cases in Zambia were from Tanzanian truck drivers. You had the same case in Kenya. You have cases in Uganda. So this issue has to be dealt with regionally and continentally. And our president should be able to sit down with fellow leaders and handle this matter in an African solidarity.
Right. Before I let you go, Honorable Zito, you say that his friends or those who are friends with him should be able to talk to him and convince him on the best way to take. We recently heard from the former Prime Minister of Kenya, Honorable Raila Odinga, who's actually known to be a close friend of President Magufuli. He actually did mention categorically that he's tried to raise the President of Tanzania via phone. He's even left him several messages on the way he's handling COVID-19. It seems to be, not bearing fruit or not making ground on this. His fellow leaders from the region have also not been able to raise him on these meetings. What other options are on the table for you, one as a Tanzanian and also as a party back in Tanzania?
We are continuing to raise the voice, and we are kindly asking all regional leaders, including friends of President Magufuli, like former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, to continue knocking the door. They should not tire. They have to continue reaching out to him, to discuss with him, and let him take all the necessary measures in order to fight this pandemic, because it is so dangerous. The infections are exponentially increasing. And if Tanzania, as I said before, if Tanzania is not able to handle this crisis, it will definitely affect neighboring countries. So it is so important for the leaders to continue engaging him, reach out to him. Definitely he will open the doors. And for Tanzanians, we are continuing to communicate with people. And we have 2 approaches. One, we are communicating with the masses to educate them on how to prevent the spread of the pandemic through the behavioral change communication. And secondly, we are holding the government to account. For example, today is the day that the government was supposed to release a report on the investigation of whether the test laboratory system in Tanzania is not working. You remember that the president said they tested pawpaw, they tested sheep, they tested goats and all. were tested positive. So he thought that imperialists were intervening into the lab system in the country, and the head of the laboratory system in national laboratory was suspended. Today was supposed to be a report. We haven't seen a report, and we have asked the Minister for Health, where is the report? Because you told us about the problems in openly, and you have to tell us about what have the professors who formed the committee to investigate the national laboratory are saying. So we'll continue. In Tanzania, we'll continue to raise the voice, we'll continue to agitate, we'll continue to inform people and communicate with people, but we really need the regional support. So Prime Minister Raila Odinga has to use his leverage. President Kenyatta, President Museveni, President Kagame, they have to be able to reach out to their colleague and talk and solve this problem so that we have we will fight this pandemic in solidarity.
Right. There are people who argue that this COVID-19 is something that has surprised many people, and most of the interventions that are being taken by various countries, various governments, are mostly a trial and error. Because much is not known about this virus. There is something you mentioned about the herbal treatment that is in Madagascar, which we know President Magufuli made some procurement for the same, but you seem to be saying that he's pursuing already questionable herbal treatments. Some people will say that you're being too unfair to a president who's just trying out. What if it works? Then well and good for us. I mean, don't you think you're being too unfair?
He's not trying anything, and we will definitely support him if his trial science. Science has to lead this process, The Madagascar herbs, the Africa CDC, not the European, not the American, not the Asian. Africa CDC said it is not tested. So the Center for Disease Control of the African Union issued a statement and said, no, yes, trial and error are very important. And we understand if this is a new thing, it's not something that everybody knows. But also you have to remember, we had the Spanish influenza in 100 years ago. It affected Kenya, Tanzania, Zanzibar, and then Tanganyika, and Uganda. And Zanzibar had very, very few deaths. Why don't we learn from that? Because Kenya, Uganda, and Tanganyika had a lot of deaths. More than 300,000 people died 100 years ago with Spanish influenza. And there are herbs then. The Africans are the same. But in Zanzibar, they managed to reduce the cases because they went into quarantine.
But someone would argue and say, we need to support our own. If the Western people came with a vaccine, majority of people, the argument is that they would really quickly want to jump on it. But here is an African country saying that they have something that they think is a solution to the problem, and we are refusing to test it. I mean,
we are not refusing. We want to. It has to be tested. It has to go through rigorous lab tests, and we welcome that. We will be very happy. We will be proud. We'll walk with our chests high around the world that Africa has come with a solution. But everybody knows that the Madagascar herb has an impact on malaria, and not on virus. And the tests haven't been conducted. And I urge the Kenyan medical research, Tanzanian medical research, the Ugandan and any other African country to test the efficacy of this Madagascar herb. And we'll support it. Yeah, we'll support it. My problem is jumping into a conclusion that this is a treatment. And I have to remind you guys, I think you remember the Babu Loliondo Kikombe. I think you remember that. People went to Loliondo, had the cup, and a lot of people died from the region, from Kenya, from Uganda, from Tanzania. You know, and there is no difference between the Madagascar herb and the Loliondo cup. And we should not forget that easily.
Right. Now, maybe finally, you say that the president of Tanzania is failing to offer leadership in terms of guidance on how to handle COVID-19. You have mentioned that, the Ramadan gatherings are actually happening. People are just moving on with their duties. But when you flip this and probably say, what if the citizens themselves take, the central lead in actually restraining their movements and gatherings instead of waiting for a leader to actually tell them to do that? How much of an influence is President Magufuli, putting here to a point where now citizens can't decide for themselves? For example, if he says continue on with your duties, but citizens are able to watch what is happening in other countries and decide upon themselves not to actually go ahead with their own duties, would someone stop them from doing that?
There are some leaders who have gone against the government stand. For example, you have a number of mosques that have been closed. You have the whole diocese of Rulenge Ngara under Archbishop or Bishop Niwemugizi. They closed their church, and also a Lutheran diocese in Karagwe and Bishop Bagonza also closed the church activities in the whole diocese. So there are some leaders who have taken action. Our party has closed the offices, and communicated with our members to restrain themselves from large gatherings. But we are in Africa, and Africa south of Sahara, north of Limpopo, the authorities are very, very powerful. People listen to the authorities. We are traditionally, we tend to respect the chiefs. And the chief here now as a country is the president. So the chief always provides the leadership. That's why we cry for the leadership. And it is a duty of the president of a country to provide that leadership guided by science. That's why we think that some people are taking action to make sure that they prevent themselves from being infected and infecting others, but still we need the leadership to guide that. And in Kenya, you had a curfew, and you know how many people have been going against the curfew.
Right. Now, what is the place of civil society in this and the opposition, apart from just piling the pressure, but when it comes to giving out the clear picture of the state of affairs in Tanzania? Today, much is not out there as far as these numbers, as you said earlier on. But what about going on the ground and giving us the clear picture of how many deaths, how many infections, of course, that are happening down there, beyond just the pressure and the press statements? What more can be? It
is very difficult because, first of all, and this is the WHO standard that only the ministers responsible are solely allowed to provide the information. So that's why you cannot hear us saying this is the number, because it's not our duty, and the minister has to do so. Otherwise, it will just be a rumor. But also, we are living in difficult times in a country like Tanzania. The press freedoms are not as it used to be 5 years ago. People are not able to easily going around, collect information and publish. A number of people have been arrested for providing some information or questioning government response on COVID-19. So for us as an opposition party, and I think for the civil society as well, this issue has to be taken in two approaches. One, to educate people through behavior change communication, as I said before. And second is to hold the government to account, because that's our duty. That's the role of an opposition,
right,
to hold the sitting government to account. And that's what we are doing. And I hope other civil society organizations will be doing so. But also, we are on our own ways, collecting information, collecting data, And once if God wishes, we go through this, we will be able to come out and say, no. These are the numbers. If you follow the UK Parliament now, there is a missing 10,000 people who have died of COVID-19. The government is not accounting for them. And the opposition is working hard to tell the government to account for these people. Where are these people? So we'll reach that level in Tanzania as well. So our people are working hard on the ground, documenting the cases, the deaths, and the likes. And when the time reaches, we'll confront the government with an alternative data, alternative facts, so that the truth is being told. But for now, the most important thing is to save lives.
Right, save lives. The U.S. is actually working on saving lives. It has issued a red alert, level 4, about the citizens traveling or staying in Tanzania. Kenya has also done the same as of Wednesday of this week. Where do you see this, or what sort of impact do you see this having on how Tanzania handles COVID-19 moving forward?
It has a huge, and this is a problem that I'm grappling with as a leader, that the impact of this is not just today, also is in the future. Because no tourist, no foreign investor will come into this country if they are not sure on the way we have handled the COVID-19. So the statement from the Americans is an alert to their citizens, but it's an alert to us as well. So that because what is happening in Tanzania more is the problem of there is a vacuum, and nature abhors vacuum. There is no information. The government is not providing information. As I said before, 14 days today, no update on COVID-19. So with that, rumor fill the vacuum. Right. And countries that are responsible for their citizens, definitely they should be able to issue statements and alert their citizens that the infection is very high. So the government has to take these issues seriously, because they don't have the impact today. They have the impact going forward.
Honorable Zito, thank you so much for making time to speak to us today on Africa 411.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll keep in touch, okay? All right. Thank you. Thank you. Right. That conversation that we did earlier on with Honorable Zito Kabwe. He is a leader of an opposition party in Tanzania, putting perspective on the state of affairs there. We definitely will be able to seek comments also from authorities there. We've been trying, and of course we'll be able to keep trying on that. Of course, with that conversation, we come to the end of Africa 411 tonight. Of course, I want to say thank you so much to all our panelists or guests who are on the show. Our producers, technicians, our sign language interpreter, Anwar Rimo, and of course you for tweeting and sharing your thoughts with us. We have Morenzi Abdelaziz who says, love from Kigali, Rwanda. It was lit. Thank you very much for watching. Wycliffe G. Makworo on Twitter says, it is not that the Tanzanian president does not know the Tanzanians need to be safe. It is only that he does not care. How is it that he is suspecting that the test equipment are contaminated by imperialist nations when the pandemic is real? This is what you say right there. We have another one here, says that, will Tanzania become the Italy of East Africa? I think so. Magufuli is living in denial by doubting everything, including the testing equipment. Tanzania needs to take the precautionary measures after countries, or rather other countries are adopting, and the World Health Organization requirements. These are your thoughts, and of course we'll keep the conversation going on our social media platforms at TV47KE. You can also tweet me directly at Eugene Anangwe, #Africa 411. I want to say thank you, and of course, good night, Africa.